Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest is mostly known by a single name, Kostas. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Paul.
So who is Kostas?
Well, that's a good question. I've been asking myself that for a long time, too. I'm just a singer-songwriter up here in Bozeman, Montana. I've been writing songs pretty much over the last 30 or 40 years, I think, somewhere in that area, and been playing music since I got my first guitar back in 59 or 60, so I've had a lot of transformations and a lot of stops along the way in my journey, but it's been an enjoyable ride because music, I found out, was my passion in life, and so it's always been a labor of love. I've never really attempted to do much else in life, so that's who Kostas is, basically, in a nutshell.
I understand you grew up in part in Greece? What was life like growing up?
Well, I was born in Greece, and we moved to the States in 57. We moved to a little town in Montana, a little farming community. And then from there in 58, we moved to Billings, Montana. And so I grew up in both places. And Greece is totally different than any part of Montana, except that they've got rocks and mountains and rivers there, too. You know? The cultures are different. I've come from a musical family, and so that music was passed along to me from various different sources in my past. And I've pursued music all my life. Growing up, it was fun. It was fun.
What about the music from growing up? What kind of music did you hear?
Well, when I lived on a little farm, there was only one radio station, and they would play everything from Perry Como to Buddy Holly or Elvis Lee and Aaron Young and Harlan Husky and all sorts of mixtures, that's just the way it was. I started listening to music early on, American music, just absorbing different things going on. Of course, at the time I didn't know how it was going to come out later because, you're just a kid. But I picked up a guitar in 58 or 59, started learning how to play, and once you combine the music in you with that instrument, or any instrument, then a certain magic begins. You start exploring the music within you through the instrument and through your voice and whatever comes through your mind musically, the directions you pursue and all that.
Can you remember the first song that you wrote?
Yeah, I think it would have to go back a long ways. The first real song I wrote would have been in 68, and it was about some strange incident that I went through that we won't get into right now.
All right. Well, how did you meet the producer, Tony Brown?
I met him through Claire Lynch, who's from the Huntsville area. She's also on Rounder Records. And she and I met in Jackson Hole back in 79, and she ended up recording about 3 or 4 songs, I don't recall the exact number, but on an album that she was doing. About 10 years, she was working with Tony Brown in Nashville in some capacity, and she played him the album that she recorded with my songs on it, and he wanted to know who the songwriter was, and she told him about me, and then he kind of pursued me from there. He dug me out. I was living up here in Bozeman at the time. So one day I got a phone call from Tony Brown, and he, very gracious person, he got me involved in the Nashville scene.
Didn't Tony Brown have a hand in the first artist ever recording one of your songs?
He was recording Patti Loveless back in 89. She was one of his artists on MCA Records. And she was doing her new album at the time, Honky Tonk Angels. And since that was about the same time that I was arriving there, he heard 3 songs of mine that she ended up putting on that album, Timber, I'm Falling in Love, which was her first number one and mine too. Came out of the blue, but it was, I just arrived and suddenly I had a number one song, and that was her first number one song as well. But then she also did follow up was The Lonely Side of Love, which made it in the top 5. And she also did another song on that same record called If You Think, which was never a single.
What songwriters have influenced you the most?
What songwriters? Well, I have to say that my closest friend in Nashville during the time I was there was Harlan Howard, and but his influences preceded our meeting. So I would say Harlan was at the top of the list, along with Eddie Cochran, Summertime Blues, Buddy Holly, Joe South, who's from down in Georgia there. He wrote some great songs. There's so many great ones. John D. Loudermilk. And then in the rock and roll world, I say Jagger. I'm losing the fellow's name, but there's just so many. Randy Newman, Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, Dylan. Just an endless array of great writers, artists. They all have an influence on you. The reason why they have an influence on you is because you like their music. And once you listen to their music, then it becomes a part of you too. And then somehow or another, that well of activity, that musical activity within you, touches your creative side too, and then new things come out of it.
How did you meet Harlan Howard?
I met Harlan in Nashville probably in 89 or 90. BMI Broadcast Music threw me a number one party for Timber, I'm Falling in Love. And Harlan showed up, and we just became friends. We got together and started writing. I wrote a bunch of songs with him. I wrote Blame It on Your Heart, which Patti Loveless recorded as well, and various other songs. Great man.
I was going to ask you about some of your songs. Tell us about Blame It on Your Heart.
Well, that's I started, the night before that song was born. I got together with a friend of mine, Jody Maphis, who was the son of Joe Maphis, famous guitar player in Nashville in the 50s, 60s, and that time period. He and I got together at my room over at a motel on Demumbrian there on Shoney's. We started drinking beer and having some fun, talking music, playing guitars and what have you. And he left around 2 or 3 in the morning. And I had to write with Harlan. It was our first actual encounter to write was the next day. And anyway, I just stayed up all night long, finishing off whatever residue that was left in the room and drinking beer. And then I started that song. I started working on it around 4 in the morning. And by the time Harlan showed up at 9, it was mostly done. We had a verse and some lines to fill in and what have you. But he came in at 9 and says, Harlan, you got anything you want to work on? He says, nah, kid. He says, how about you? I says, well, I stayed up here and I have this little idea going. So I played it for him and he lit up like a Christmas tree and we finished it. And we were down at this bar, Toucans, as in the bird toucan. We were down there drinking by about 11 and got done drinking because I was so tired. I probably finished my last sip around 12:30, went back to the motel, passed out for the next couple of days. When I got up, I started playing the song. I played it for Patti Loveless and her producer at that time. And they passed on it because they called it a ditty at the time. They didn't think much of it. And so it just kind of floored me that they didn't like the song. So I was kind of persistent, but every time I'd try to get the thing to get their interest up on it, they refused it, So then this other gal sang it, and there was a movie in Nashville that was being made at the time called a thing called Love. And they got a hold of the song somehow, and they loved it. They were going to use it in the movie, and I think as soon as Doug Johnson and Patti Lovelace found out that it was going to be in the movie, then they wanted to record it, so they went in the studio before anybody else could get a hold of it and cut it, and then it was her, probably one of her bigger hit songs.
We're joined by songwriter Kostas. What was the inspiration behind the song Ain't That Lonely Yet, which Dwight Yoakam recorded?
Hell, as the song clearly, just a bad relationship. It was just a bad place in time for me. It was all about that.
Is it possible for you to pick a favorite song that you wrote?
It's not really, because they are all another facet of, a place you've been in yourself and in life, So I love, I hate to say it, or maybe I don't want to sound conceited, but I like my work, So I couldn't say this one's better than that one, or this one's my favorite. There are some stinkers in the pile, don't get me wrong, but I like the good ones equally.
What about the song you wrote, Two-Time and Two-Stepper?
Wow. Well, I think that was pretty much pulled out of the, hat. I think the title came first, Two-Time and Two-Stepper, Looking for a One-Night Stand. It's kind of reminiscent of old-time country titles, they were just kind of a little quirk about them. Anyway, I thought it was a kind of an entertaining subject, but the individual in the song was many a guy that I've seen, in bars over the years. I've played in a lot of bars, and you see these guys, maybe I was one of them for a while. Not that I ever, on my marriage, that's not what I'm saying, but I was definitely part of the bar scene at one time, but in one way or the other. But in any case, there were a lot of people in the bars, that were just always trying to pick up on a girl or another, and they were using all their moves and all their words and whatever they had to offer, to get a girl. So that's what that song was about.
We're joined by hit songwriter Kostas. How do you write songs, and what inspires them?
It helps to have a good title. The better the title is, and titles are thoughts that pass through your mind that you recognize as being a good title, and write it down and then come back to it, and then it's the reverse of pulling on a thread. It's the reverse of that. You take the thread and you make something out of it. And the title can sometimes be the thread that you build the suit out of. And I think songwriters have to write a story in 3, 4, 5 minutes of time. Book writers have months or a year and 600 pages or more. Movies are, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. But a song is about 3 minutes. And you have to write that story, and it has to make sense, and there has to be a place that it goes to, called the hook. You've got verses, chorus, bridge. A friend of mine came up with this down in Nashville. Verse, chorus, bridge, lunch, chorus out.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it was John Goodwin that said that.
You've written quite a few songs with singer-songwriter Dwight Yoakam. What is he like to work with?
First, let me say I've written maybe about 6 to 7 or 8 songs with him. Oh, he's a interesting and a fun person, He lives his life. He's down in Hollywood there somewhere on Mulholland Drive. He's a very private guy, a very talented individual as well, great singer, and comes up with a lot of songs on his own. It was just an interesting period of time to hook up with him. He had ideas that we completed. I had ideas that we completed, but he had some good songs in the works, And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
We're joined by singer-songwriter Kostas. In your opinion, what makes a good song a good song?
To me, a song is a mirror you can look into and see yourself. And then when other people look at the same mirror, meaning hear that same song, and they can see themselves in it, and that's a good song. And as to what makes it that, I guess the magic that's in the songwriter.
What is the best thing about being Kostas?
The best thing about being Kostas is that Kostas is still alive, and Kostas is, I'm relatively unknown as far as being a major player on the scene. My time has more or less come and gone. That's okay. The best part of being Kostas is to still be here in this world and to still learn and be a part of other people's lives, share, and to find a meaning for it all. That's all.
Well, my last question. For anyone who is listening to this interview, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would like to say this goes beyond songwriting. It just, I think just look at the positive side of life and to follow your dreams, whatever they might be,
Well, sir, thank you very much for this interview.
Well, it's my pleasure, Paul.
The pleasure was mine.
Thank you.